Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new webinar hosted by me, Andrei Zinkevich, and my co-founder, Vladimir Blagoevich. Today, we are going to talk about how to develop B2B marketing strategy for 2022. And the reason why we decided to talk about this topic is because recently I did a research with our trenches community. And also I sent several newsletter broadcasts asking you guys what is the #1 challenge for you. And surprisingly, maybe not that surprisingly, but anyhow, the #1 challenge was exactly how to develop B2B marketing strategy. And inside this survey, inside this research, I have heard lots of things. Basically, we don't know how to nail ideal customer profile. We don't understand on what market segments we should focus on, as we can serve broad industries. We don't know how to nail our unique value proposition, and basically our customers don't see the value of our products. We don't know what channels and what tactics should we use for prospecting. And more or less all these things are related to one question. Basically, we don't have a clear go-to-market strategy. And that's the goal. That's the goal for today. Today, we are going to share our entire framework step by step, which we use in our consultant projects with our clients. So after this webinar, you'll have a clear structure, clear framework, a clear overview of go-to-market strategy development. But before we'll start, let me ask you a quick question. Where are you from, guys? Just leave a reply in a Zoom chat. Curious to see where you're all from joining us today. Bosnia, Serbia, Canada, Ireland, Scotland, UK, Denmark, Canada. Yes, Canada, Spain, Argentina, wow, Paraguay, Belgium. So we have people all across the globe, Boston, Norway, Slovakia. Cool, cool. Nice to meet you all. Thanks a lot. That's really fantastic to have an international audience today. So as for today's agenda, we have 4 core parts. The first part, I want to talk about the boiler room strategy, something that I'm seeing quite often in B2B companies. Next, we are going to share with you the 6 core elements of marketing strategy. The point #3 would be all about full funnel model, or how to influence the buying journey. And finally, measuring the go-to-market strategy efficiency, so basically how your B2B marketing report should look. Again, it would be subjective point of view, right, based on our combined 30 years in B2B marketing, and hope it will be helpful. Feel free to ask your questions in a Zoom chat. We'll have a room for live Q&A, so whenever you would like to jump in, me or Vlad will call you and we can have live discussion. So I suggest to start with the boiler room strategy. And let me ask you a question. Have you ever watched this movie, The Boiler Room? Let me know in the Zoom chat. Just share yes or no. Curious to see. Okay, so lots of folks. Yeah, no. I highly recommend you to, if you haven't watched this movie, I highly recommend you to watch it. And the reason why is because so many B2B companies have company-centric mindset. This month, we had several conversations with new prospects, and some of them mentioned that the real problem, so we were talking about demand gen, account-based market, and all this stuff, but the main problem, look, I was asking a question. Look, guys, let me know, please. What do you feel is the core challenge, right, in your company? Why do you think that you have these goals and these challenges? And quite often they said, you know what, the core challenge is the mindset of our executives and our sales team. They tend to think that we have the best product in the category, right? We are quite mature companies, so somehow we grew up to this point. And basically all we need to do is just to aware our target market that our product exists. And Because of this, they tend to think, okay, we just need to train our sales folks as good sales folks know how to sell the stuff, right? We don't need to do marketing, brand, and positioning, forget about all this stuff. We don't need to do it. And basically, this is all about the boiler room movie. This is exactly what the guys were doing. They didn't have marketing team. They had two roles in their sales team, right? They had SDRs and account executives. And the goal of SDRs was just doing cold calling and cold emailing and trying to book meetings. And whenever they got an interest, they passed that lead to account executive. And the goal of account executive was exactly closing the deal, right? This is how the boiler room sales look like. So doing mass outreach and then sending the prospects to account executives, which is an AF funnel, right? But what about boiler room marketing? It also exists. And the boiler room marketing is exactly fulfilling the expectations of sales. With doing lots of gated content promotion, with doing lots of promoting webinars that are packed as a value event, come and learn, but basically these events are all about sales. These are basically hidden product demos, right? So people come, but instead of learning and getting something new, they just see the product demo. And all these leads, the next step is basically sending these leads, as marketing used to call them, to sales, right? And sales need to call them, as you can see, this is a real example of like, you just sign up for the webinar and immediately after the webinar, you get a sales call or sales email or a LinkedIn message, whatever. And the real problem, I know that for many companies, it could be, this is the only way how they think they can grow their businesses and generate pipeline, right? But now let's look at the B2B marketing reality. So every year, HubSpot produces the state of inbound report, right? And this is the fresh research they have done. And there was a core question. As a marketer, what is the biggest challenge you face in 2021, right? And 47% told generating traffic and leads, and 21% told providing ROI for your marketing activities, which means that 68% basically don't drive revenue, right? They have problem with it. And this is exactly because of the company-centric mindset and the second, of course, the second problem is that these companies don't have go-to-market strategy at all. All they want to do is just to aware their target addressable market with bunch of sales emails and ads that their product exists and they expect that people are going to buy. And that's the problem. That's the problem exactly the companies are struggling. So aside from these insights, I think that we could smoothly move towards the go-to-market strategy development, right? And the first thing we should discuss is what is a go-to-market strategy?
And I think this is really an important question, because if you ask 10 different people what is a marketing strategy, we'll probably get 10 different responses. And even if you look at Wikipedia, it's weirdly unclear. They say something like a marketing strategy is a long-term forward-looking approach to planning with the fundamental goal of achieving a sustainable competitive advantage. Sorry, I had to take a breath here. So the problem that I have with that is that it's not very actionable. And the way that we like to look at the marketing strategy is basically it is a clear path from point A to point B, point A being where you're now, and point B being the desired outcome, whether that's growing your sales by 30%, whether that's penetrating new markets, whatever your business goals are, with required resources, so kind of people resource, what kind of technology you need. That includes the following elements. It includes the focus, the target market, what are the most lucrative, most profitable segments and customers to focus on. It includes the value proposition, especially value proposition that is refined or adapted to that target market, then the triggers that make your customers start searching or learning about the product like yours, so really understanding, in other words, the buying process from the very early stages and how to influence that, in other words, demand generation, and then identifying the process and what influences the buying process as it follows, and in other words, demand capturing, and then of course building based on that buying process, building your sales and marketing process in the way that you're selling and marketing in the way that your customers are buying, right? And finally, it's about expanding the business of with existing accounts, existing customers, and turning those customers into advocates, stimulating the word of mouth. So the next question is like, where do you start with go-to-market strategy? Like, you know, all these elements, all these different things that you should do, like what is the starting point?
And this is crucial because you could jump into tactics, right? You could implement the best practices. You could copy in the market leaders from your category, right? But if you haven't done one fundamental exercise, your marketing strategy will be doomed. And let me ask you a question. Have you ever watched this movie? And recognize this movie? This is Alice in Wonderland. I believe most of you have seen this, right? Or at least read the book. And there was a famous dialogue happened between Cheshire Cat and Alice when she came to him, right, and asked a question like, can you please help me and let me know where should I go? And Cat replied, it depends on where you want to go and where you want to be. And Alice replied, it doesn't matter. Then he said, Cat replied back, right, then it doesn't matter which way you'll choose. And this is exactly what happens with most companies. You won't believe, but whenever we host a team alignment workshop, so before developing a go-to-market strategy for our clients, we usually have a team alignment workshop. And we have a mirror dashboard, and we ask everybody to put the goals the company should achieve next year in the next period of time, doesn't matter. We always see different replies, which means different departments have different priorities. And basically, usually we have executives, sales, and marketing, and these teams are not aligned. So before starting working on marketing strategy, you need to do the step 0, right? And reply get answers to 3 most important questions. What do we want to achieve? How might we achieve it? And what challenges we might face, and how can we overcome these challenges? And make sure that everybody is aligned on strategic goals, executive, sales, and marketing. It's also crucial why I have these 3 questions, right? Why I have this set of questions. Because everybody should understand that there would be challenges. So you shouldn't wear pink glasses, you know, assuming that we'll be doing this and everybody would be fantastic. You won't be able to set up a linear forecast or linear funnel saying, hey, if we'll do 100 more calls, then we'll generate 10 more sales qualified opportunities, and it will bring us, I don't know, 1 million in net new revenue. That won't be possible. So the question is exactly what we're going to do, how we might achieve this, and what challenges we might face, plus create a plan A and plan B. How are we going to tackle these challenges when we'll face them? To really grow your business, you must come prepared, right? You should always have a plan B and be ready for the challenges. So these are, let's say, the most important things before starting working on go-to-market strategy. And now let's review the core elements of GTM strategy, right? I believe we should start with the question, guys, what do you think should be the first element you should start work on? Just share in a Zoom chat. what is the first element of go-to-market strategy you should be working on?
Customer ICP definition, goals, market size, persona, buying committee, segmenting, product market fit. Thanks. Wow. Positioning ICP. All right. I think we should invite some of you to give the presentation here. There are a lot of really good answers, but let me just share it from our perspective and where we like to start. And some of you actually already nailed it. And the first element that we work on is market segmentation. It is about understanding which segments you want to prioritize. And now I know that a lot of people that I talk to say, things like, our solution is technology agnostic. It doesn't really matter for us who we sell to, right? Well, it always makes me think of the times when my wife and me had to search for a surgeon for my son, who was only 5 years old, wasn't anything serious, thank God, but he had to have some surgery. And my idea there was that, we wanted, my idea, my wife's as well, obviously, was like, we wanted obviously somebody who had experience with children, somebody who had proven experience with exactly the same types of customer as we were, if you like. So even though you could be selling and implementing your solution to different types of customers, doesn't mean that these customers are buying in the same way. So that's really the key. And there is the reason that you want to go to the market via specific segments is also because in a specific segment, you will have a better client message fit, right? If I'm a SaaS founder and I'm looking for a CRM and I see two basically CRMs, let's say ads or websites, and one of them is, with our CRM, you can close deals faster, like some sort of generic positioning like a lot of them have. Or another one, which is more like, okay, with our SaaS CRM, which will help you reduce churn and, whatever, grow your monthly recurring revenue, whatever like that. This is the one that is going to have my attention because of the better client message fit. Another advantage of working via segments is that there is more word of mouth in a very well connected segment, right? So there are many reasons why you want to really start nailing your segment. And we shared this case study here, which was one of our clients, and they came to us and they were struggling with basically they were saying to me, we have a low conversion from free trials to paying customers, and thinking, well, there must be some sort of like an onboarding like process or a hack or something like a mail sequence, whatever we need to do to get those free trial users, like more of those free trial users to actually become our customers. But actually, we had a look at what was going on and who these people were, etc., and figure out actually maybe you're selling to the wrong type of customer. And once we did the market segmentation, we decided, okay, we are going to focus on this other segment. And as a result, within maybe, I think it was 2 months, they had accelerated. So they increased the conversion from free trial to the paying customer. Those customers were ready to pay 5 times more. So their average deal size was 5-fold bigger. And they really, they even got an investment. There was a lot of consequence of just that one decision. And just to kind of wrap it up by nailing the process that we like to use for market segmentation, the best way to create a marketing strategy is to look for evidence. So what that means, it means going and analyzing your CRM and looking at the different segments that you have and figuring out where your best customers are, where you have the larger deals, etc. This is not to say that you cannot consider other segments. For example, we had a client who was we were looking at, what should be their focus segment, and, talking to their salespeople, we realized that in one of the specific markets, like it was like HVAC, like heating, ventilation, etc., there was a lot of demand for their services, for their products, for their technology. In fact, because like there was this whole move back to office, and all the installation had to be COVID proof, and they were like buying these systems, they were COVID proof or whatever. So like there was like one very specific reason why we decided to focus on that segment, because there was a lot of demand in there. But what I'm trying to say is, look, the best way to do it is analyze your customers, and then figure out which segments are you selling to right now, and analyze them, basically score them based on a number of criteria: how much revenue you're making, how profitable they are, how easy it is for you to get in contact with people in that, how much traction you have, how much track record you have there, proof in that segment, etc., etc. Now that you have nailed the market segment, the next step is to, maybe if you can move the slide, Andre. Next step is to nail your ideal customer profile.
Yeah, exactly. But before we'll move forward, I would like to touch one important point. And this is where most companies are making core mistake. They don't do the segmentation, right? And you have seen, when I asked the question, so what should be the first element, you have seen different replies, right? I would say the real problem with ideal customer profiles lays in the lack of understanding that ICP, ideal customer profile, right? The abbreviation is ICP, is created for each of the segments, right? And it couldn't be a combined data from different segments. You have guys probably heard, right, about this famous quote that all customers were not created equal. And the same could be applied to segments, right? Not all segments were created equal. Some segments can generate you more profit, right? In general, they might be more fruitful for your company. So you need to identify the segments and then only develop ideal customer profile, extracting the data from the best customers from this specific segment and working on ICP. The goal of ICP exercise is identifying the patterns and features of your top customers from this specific segment and develop account segmentation criteria, right? So then if you are doing sales prospecting, right, you are doing account-based marketing, you are doing demand generation, you are focusing on right accounts, right? And the accounts that have the features of your best accounts, and they could generate much more profit. It doesn't mean basically that you should exclude all other accounts from the segment, but the goal is to understand what motivates your core customers to buy, right? What problems, what challenges your product solves, what benefits they are getting out of it, right? Because then it impacts your positioning, your value proposition, your marketing message in general, your content, right? That should be aligned. And also keep in mind that when it comes to ideal customer profile, I posted about this last week on LinkedIn, that in B2B, we don't sell to Mary Jane from New York that follows, that mom of 2 kids and follows Tony Robbins. That's a B2C stuff, right? In B2B, we are selling to specific accounts. So we have one part, ideal account, and then the second part, the buying committee. Because the truth is, if you are selling to let's say, to micro startups, then yeah, there would be one founder, maybe 2 co-founders, right? One is technical, one is sales and marketing and administration. But if you are selling to mature companies, if you are selling to mid-size, to enterprise, you'll be dealing always with multiple people, right? HBR reports every time that in average, let's say the buying committee size is about 7 people, which means 7 people influence your deal, right? And if you want to successfully close the deals, right, if you want to increase the chances of generating opportunities with strategic accounts, you need to deal with each of them. And now the truth is that every buying committee member has own needs, own KPIs, own goals, own challenges, and own reasons to buy or not to buy your product. And that's crucial to understand in your marketing and sales process. Finally, something that I said in the beginning, not all segments were created equal, not all customers were created equal. And my question is, if one customer can generate 20 times more revenue than other customers, right? Why should be this customer treated that the same way like others? Makes no sense, right? But most companies do exactly opposite. They set up one cost of acquisition, yeah? So they set up the, let's say, cost per lead target, and they approach everybody the same way. So completely opposite to the common sense, right? To the normal things that these accounts should be approached differently. And we believe that this is like, let's say, the foundation, the core foundation of account-based marketing, that you should divide all your ICPs into 3 tiers. Tier 1, the companies with the highest revenue potential, which you should serve, right, individually or basically running one-to-one campaigns. Tier 2, where you serve, let's say, you do 1 to few, right, where you personalize per roles. And then tier 3, these are your mass market campaigns, could be ads, could be general content marketing, right, could be also outreach, etc. But you don't focus that much on tier 3, right? Your core focus is on tier 2 and tier 1. And the goal is to create a set of criteria that will help you to easily identify best customers and also set up disqualification criteria. Again, because not all customers were created equal, and you don't want to waste time on wrong prospects. You don't want to waste your sales team time prospecting the wrong prospects, right? That's the goal, and these are the core things that you must know about ideal customer profile. And when you'll nail it, also a part of this should be customer interviews. This is the way how you enrich information, right? And this is how you get the ideas for your positioning, for value proposition, understanding the way how your customers are buying, right? That's mandatory step in ICP development. After you have finished it, after you have nailed ICP, your next step is developing positioning, right? And creating unique value proposition that is dedicated to this specific ideal customer profile.
All right. Maybe just a quick question, because I was searching for this for a long time. How would you define positioning? What's positioning for you? You can share in the comments. Okay. Drop a comment if you want while people are typing. Just wanted to share a quick story. When I joined USP, okay, how you're different than your competitors. That's a good one. USP, unique selling proposition. All right, that's interesting. Competitive advantage, how you uniquely solve a cost need. How your customers, buyer think about, understand what you do. I like that. The foundation upon which house marketing and sales is built. Where do you fit in the ecosystem? That's a good one. How do you convey your USP? All right. Yes, April Dunford has definitely a really good framework, and we are having April on Thursday, and you're welcome to join the live podcast that we have with her, and you can just ask any question you have of, in my opinion, the top expert in positioning for B2B tech companies, SaaS companies, and alike. Yeah, she's definitely very cool and totally an expert in her field. Now, you know, you had a lot of good insights in the positioning. To just like simplify it, what is positioning? It is how you relate to how your customers and prospects perceive your product or your brand. Let's talk about a product. Perceive your product in your product category, right? it is positioned, like somebody said, ecosystem, right? But it's basically your product, your market category, like your maybe an email marketing solution. So that would be your category. So how do you position? How do you perceive? How do your customers and prospects perceive your product within this, as it compares to other solutions? And you're totally right. It has to do with who these customers are, and it has to do with how you're different. How you're different, right? Then why they should choose you and not everybody else. And why is positioning so important nowadays? Well, because we live in the world of infinite supply. There is now only in the MarTech space more than 8,000 startups, and there were like 150 back in 2011. It's just like 5,200% more, right? The growth is just like amazing. It's not possible anymore to position solely based on features, product, or technology. That doesn't work anymore. You really need to adapt your positioning also to your target market. After having this clarity, you really want to do this. And why do you want to do this? Well, there are all these other solutions, and if your prospects don't understand the difference, they are going to focus on things like price, maybe features, integration, reviews, and eventually it's almost impossible to win that war. And if you start competing on price, that's basically a race to the bottom. So you need to communicate how you're different, why you're worth buying, and how you're different than all these other solutions. And what is on the slide is interesting, because when I joined the full funnel, we both had a lot of experience individually, but we started building this company relatively recently. It was, in Q3 last year, we really officially started in Q4, but really at the beginning, I had a lot of sales calls. I had a lot of sales calls. I wasn't closing much of them, and they weren't really a good fit. And so that's when we decided, Andrei, or he said to me, I don't know who said to whom, Vlad, what we really need to do is we really need to eat our own dog food, and we really need to go back to the drawing board and nail our ICP and our positioning in the market. Okay, so that's really when I started having less calls and more sales. Less leads, more revenue became actually our motto. Okay, but to be very, very practical, what we need to do is here, we need to figure out how are we different than the others in our market, in our category. And there are different positioning strategies that you can use, and April will share a lot of them on Thursday. We have also published an article where we have identified 11 different strategies that you might be able to use, but we don't have the time, unfortunately, to dive in. So just maybe share an example of how we do it, and I think it makes sense for a lot of companies, is basically niching down, right? In our case, we niche down both on the target market and on what we do. And that's also how you can think about positioning, like what you are for whom, right? Within the category and how you're different. But so in this case, we're just niching down on the specific type of customers. We work with B2B tech brands with high ACV and long and complex sales cycles. That is our ideal customer. This is who we work with. And we could be working also for other types of B2B businesses like manufacturing, etc., but we don't. We just work with these, and we work with only these businesses for the last, what is it, 15 years, each of us individually. And then the second part is also what we do. We could be doing a lot of different kinds of marketing, like marketing consulting could mean a lot of things. We could be doing, video marketing and ads and stuff. But what we do is we do what we call full funnel marketing. And now comes an interesting part. We do full funnel marketing, but the idea here is we needed to adapt our messaging and the way that we communicate this positioning. So for us, the positioning is clear, but the second question is, how do you communicate your positioning to your market? And that's really what the value proposition is all about. Value proposition really tells like how you're different and why you are worth buying. In other words, it tells you the value that you're providing to your customers and tells you how you're different. Now, in that communication, we couldn't really talk about full funnel marketing because not a lot of people in our market, because we were adopting our message to our target market, we realized that a lot of our a lot of the people in our target market weren't really aware of this term of full funnel marketing. So the way that we talk about it is basically say, we help B2B tech and service-based companies generate demand, mid-market and enterprise sales qualified opportunities. So that's the value part, and using full funnel account-based marketing operations. So the way we communicate it, we use the terms that people are familiar with. We talk about demand generation, we talk about account-based marketing. So we are really adopting the message to the target market. So one more thing to kind of wrap this up is that you have developed a value proposition and maybe updated or refine your positioning. There are like two important things. The first one is you don't want to just base this on your assumptions, or even like obviously you're basing that on your ICP and your research and everything, but the way that you're talking about it, the best practice here is to go and validate this. So we always, like after defining a value proposition, go back to those customers, whether you use a survey, whether you use a tool like Winter, like for messaging testing, go back and validate this with your ICP. And the second one is that positioning and value proposition, especially positioning, is not worth much if it's not really implemented, right? And positioning can have an impact on even your product, the way you serve your customers, maybe even on your business model. But at a minimum, there is one thing you need to do in order to implement it.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you need to adapt your message to target segments and ICP, right? And you need to start communicating it to your target market and use it in all of your marketing assets, your website, your LinkedIn profiles, or other social media, company pages, could be your email signature, right? Proposal, slide decks, etc., etc., etc. So that's the key, right? So you always communicate your positioning, and also you start adopting your content strategy, everything that you publish, right? Also ads, also outreach, and leveraging this, right? This is how you start communicating it and delivering it to your target market. And when you nail this, right? When you, let's say you have worked on these three core elements, right? You start adding your positioning and you repeat your marketing message. So what's the next step? The next step, some of you might think or might say that the next step is basically start launching marketing campaigns. But I would say that the next step is nailing down the buyer's process, the way how your customers are buying. And it's twofold process. First of all, you know that there are some specific triggers that might motivate your customers to start searching for products like yours. But that's, let's say, that's the minor part of your market. For the major part of your market, you need to create demand. They're not actively looking for your products, right? And you need to make them curious. And that's crucial. So if you don't know how your customers are buying, if you won't create this buyer's journey map, right, then you'll be doing lots of guessworking, you'll be making mistakes, right? Or you'll just stick to the boiler room strategy, right? Boiler room sales and marketing. Well, fingers will be crossed that you'll generate some sales qualified opportunities. So the next step is developing buying journey, but I think that first of all, we need to touch the harsh B2B marketing reality.
Yeah, and I'm sure many of you know this. The majority of your market is not buying right now. They're not actively buying. And it's really funny, and I was reflecting this morning, I was swimming, and I was reflecting on this, like, why do we talk about buyers, you know? We are all buyers at a certain point in time, right? We're just like, buyers are just us. Well, buyers are us. No, what I wanted to say is basically, if you think about it, the buyers are just people, executives, managers in target companies, they're just trying to do their job better. They're dealing with, the fact that you're a marketer doesn't mean that you are ready to buy the 8,000th MarTech solution out there, right? So you maybe have that problem, but it doesn't mean that you're not dealing with that problem somehow, right? So that's just to very simply think about it. Buyers are somehow dealing with that. They're not buying, they're not interested, they're not maybe even considering this to be the problem that they have a priority. What are they doing at that stage? They are maybe interested to learn, maybe get some entertainment, maybe to connect to other people. Why I'm saying that, just to say that basically at this stage, it doesn't mean that, oh, okay, so we should just ignore 97% of our market. No, there are things that you can do to engage with your buyers, help them learn, connect to them. You remember I said they are looking to learn, connect to people, etc., and create demand in that way. Now, once they do start to buy, they don't spend their time meeting with potential suppliers. Well, they do, they spend a part of their time, but they actually spend a minority of time connecting to the to the suppliers, to the vendors, right? What do? Well, they do research. They, seek out recommendations from their colleagues, from their network, from their peers. They ask on communities. They start all these conversations to figure out what are the possible ways to solve the problem they're dealing with, and what are the solutions, what are the other people's experience. And actually, they spend a lot of time. They spend 22%, according to some studies. I don't know how they figured it out, but apparently did. 22% of the time talking to their colleagues, to the rest of the buying committee, compared to the 17% that they talk to actually you. So anyhow, it's just interesting. So they are not ready. Now, what we want to do is, these are kind of ideas about the buying process, general ideas, but what you want to do, you want to nail the buying journey of your customers. All right. So remember that we have been working on an ideal customer profile. The way that we worked on the ideal customer profile, ideally, is by talking to your customers, by interviewing your customers. And part of that is figuring out how are they buying, and what does that mean? So how do we think about it? Well, the first thing to think about it is, what are the buying triggers? What is going in their business that triggers them to start to search for a solution like yours? Like, what are the triggers? Next is, from those triggers, what are the different steps that they are taking, right? So how do they become aware of, how do they start analyzing the problem that they have? How do they decide to give it the priority? How do they discover different possible solutions? How do they, then shortlist those solutions? And finally, how do they make a decision? So these are the different stages. These are the columns. And for each of those stages, you want to define those stages. So we might be asking people, the customers, you might be asking them about, what are the steps through which you go? What are the, you can be asking them about what are the purchase criteria, like when you're choosing a solution like ours, what is important for you, what impacts your decision, who else is involved in the buying process, etc. So essentially, you want to figure out the triggers, the steps or stages, if you like. And then for each of those stages, you're going to be asking both your customers and yourselves, and analyzing, obviously, like sales calls, lost deals, won deals, etc. And you want to figure out, next to what are the steps, what are the actions that they're taking, you want to figure out what information are they looking for, right? What questions they might have. But also, what concerns, doubts, or objections might they have at each stage? Again, you could be asking your customers, for example, before you decided to purchase our product, did you have any concerns or doubts? Did you get any critical questions from your colleagues, right? Then who is involved at this stage? Maybe at the early stage, there will be somebody, tasked with the research, or there will be the champion doing, the majority of stages. The decision maker may, join at a later stage. Maybe they will ask opinion from other influencers or bloggers, etc. But these are things, again, that you can ask, like, who was involved, who was sitting in the meetings, who was, asking, who was asked for his or her opinion or advice. And you can also ask your customers, like, okay, did you get any specific questions from your colleagues? How did you introduce our solution to your decision makers? Did you get any, any resistance or objections, etc., etc., right? So this is how you actually list and nail the different steps, stages of the buying process and get this information. Now, the point of this, like, why are you doing that? Well, you're doing that because you want to create a sales and marketing process that is based on the way that your buyers buy, right? And how do you do that? Well, practically, after collecting all this information up there, you want to think about, okay, what is, so for, you will have like what information they're seeking. So what kind of content I could create to answer these questions? What kind of activities, what kind of actions could I perform at this stage to potentially like make them aware? Like, okay, maybe there are some triggers that are happening in their business, but maybe I can do a number of actions to create that awareness and start driving demand, right? So these are the kind of things that you need to be thinking about. And this is, you're going to start basically building the process and also the key initiatives and content, etc. You're actually already starting to build your plan, but now is the time to put it all together. So, Andre.
Yeah, so the goal is to map out when you know all the information, right? The next step is start planning activities to create the demand, right? Or capture the demand of this 3%. Now, by discussing these 4 points, I believe that what starts making sense to you is that you need to have full funnel marketing plan, right? That's why we invest so much time into talking about full funnel marketing, explaining the concept, because if we'll just say, hey, we do full funnel marketing, it won't make sense to anybody. And just to prove the studies, right, and the stats that we have shared, let me ask you a practical question. Imagine that we were not hosting this webinar right now. And imagine you didn't know me. I were not posting content on LinkedIn. I were not doing this podcasts, workshops, etc. And I just PM'd you yesterday. Hey guys, you know what? I can help you with go-to-market strategy. You'll have this, this, and that. Here is a link to my calendar. Would you like to book a call with me? How many of you would reply back to me saying, yeah, of course, let's have a call? I'm just curious. Let me know in the chat. How many of you would reply back to me saying, yeah, Andrea, of course, where you were for all this time, we were waiting for this email. Let's have a call. Just type yes or no. Would you go to reply to? No, I said, yeah, because you know me, but I said, let's pretend you didn't know me and I wasn't doing all this stuff, right? So that's the real case. Even let's say, if I just sent a generic email, probably that, hey guys, let's work together, I can help you go to market strategy, right? Potentially, because some of you know me, you could reply back, right, and say, yep, or probably that's not the high priority, but that might be interested. I should, let's say, allocate some time and budget for this engagement. But the chances would be much higher. And now the truth is, how likely you were going to reply to this email if you knew me, right? You were following me, you attended this webinar, you like this framework, right? And you want to implement it for your company, right? And you want to work with me together. And then I will send you an email. Hey, so we have some spots for Q1. If you are interested, let's work together. How likely you are going to reply back to my email? Again, just type in a Zoom chat. curious to hear your feedback. So if you attended this webinar, you like the framework and you have this need, right? Develop and go-to-market strategy. How likely you would? Yeah, exactly. So I feel like you would be, if you see the value, right? And you have a trust that I might help you, you might reply it positively back. And that's exactly the goal of full funnel marketing, right? The goal of this webinar is creating demand. Of course, we understand that not everybody who would be listening to this webinar would have an interest or immediate need, right? But the truth is that at some point, if you liked it, right? At some point, if you'll have a need of getting help with go-to-market strategy, we fullfunnel.io would be at least in your consideration list. Am I correct? That's exactly the goal of full funnel marketing, right? So you need to address the entire buying journey. And as I shared with you in the beginning, the boiler room sales and marketing, just believe me, I'm not going to send you email saying, hey, let's book a call, because if you wanted to book a call with me, you know where to find me, you know our website, and you can easily could easily do this, right? So the goal is to create a plan to address the entire buyer journey. And we have several stages, right? We have awareness stage, because this is how you could attract the attention. And this is how you could create these demand triggers, right? So you could make your customers be curious and willing to learn more about your product. And you have a bunch of activities. Could be organic search, organic social, guest posts, public speaking, podcast interviews. Should be, of course, proactively growing your network, partnership webinars, like we have done a bunch of them this year, community engagement, something that Vlad mentioned about the way how customers are buying, right? This is awareness. This is not demand generation. And the reason why, because demand is created when the awareness was created, right? So these companies are aware of you and they are willing to learn more about the product or the service. And the way I believe, the way how the demand could be created, right, is by sharing the actual results. Could be case studies, customer stories, right, that basically show you the way, the results you could achieve by leveraging this specific product or service. I don't, to be honest, on LinkedIn, I hear lots of talks about personal brand, etc. But for me, personal brand and also brand in general, right, is being recognizable for being capable to execute specific things or achieving specific results. And the way how you could create this demand is when you share actionable frameworks that people could use, right? Or case studies saying, this is a company X, they had these challenges, this is what we have done together, explaining it in details, breaking down the budgets, timelines, activities, etc. And these are the outcomes. This is how the demand could be created. And then you have different activities to create this demand. It could be, again, content, could be manual distribution to strategic accounts, could be paid targeting distribution, could be your newsletter, could be webinars like this, right? And the next step is demand capture. So basically you have, you are creating demand, but you also, I don't believe in, let's say, passive inbound generation. It might work, but if you want also to push, in some cases, well, if for small businesses, pure demand and inbound might be enough, right? But for, let's say, bigger companies that have, let's say, more ambitious goals that want to grow, they couldn't rely only on, let's say, organic inbound. They should do proactive. They should have proactive approach. So they need to have ABM warm-up programs when they identify accounts that are engaged, right? And start involving them into proactive collaboration. Basically, you are warming them up. We have different playbooks, and this year we spoke so much about this on our YouTube channel. You might see different webinars covering these topics. Also, last week we had a webinar with Nick Bennett talking about how to engage strategic accounts, so you could watch this. Next step is content hubs, right? Content hubs are the personalized hubs to your accounts that create a unique buyer enablement process, right? So you create a hub with the content that you want your buyers to consume. As you know, this content might motivate them to purchase your product or have a conversation with you, right? And doing the nurturing in this process. Next one is ABM activation, because in some cases you need to slightly push your accounts, but not doing, let's say, mass outreach or sending some generic emails, right? Saying, hey, let's have a call with this, when you know that account is engaged, right? And you know what content was they consumed, right? With what pages did they check on your website, right? With what content did they engage on LinkedIn? What events did they attend, etc., right? You could identify their needs, and then you could personalize, let's say, a solution for them, saying, hey, it's just a raw idea, of course, but basically it looks like you might say, hey, so I saw that you are interested in this and that. Do you have any questions? Would you like more help? Is this your priority? Do you work on it? If you are interested, let's have a call. I might answer your questions and just we can brainstorm together how to implement this, right? That's a part of social selling. So basically you are suggesting help. You are not coming, hey, buy my product. You know what? If you'll buy until Friday, you'll get this discount or whatever, right? You're just coming and helping them. The next one is basically for most companies, the funnel stops at, or their marketing and sales processes stop at this point. But the truth is that we have two more stages, which are often ignored: client success and expansion. And the real problem here is that most companies operate they tend to think that their customers are happy by default, which means if they are not complaining, if they are not sending, support tickets, if they are not reaching via live chat or sending emails, they are happy. But the truth is, if they are not adopting your product, if they are not getting benefits out of it, and even if they paid for a yearly subscription, then at one point you'll have contract renewal process, and the chances that they won't renew it are really high, right? So your goal is actually track their satisfaction. And this is exactly where with Flat we implement the customer interviews. This is exactly the right point where you should start talking to your customers and tracking their satisfaction. This is really important because the truth is, if your customers are not satisfied, how could you ask them to post a testimonial, review you on G2Crowd, right? Publish a case study? No chances. And just believe me, sending a mass email saying, hey, if you'll just leave a review on G2Crowd, you'll get 25 Amazon discount card, won't help. You all know this, right? So the goal is basically helping your customers getting out most of your product, because when they get this value, you might have case studies, you might get the recommendations, and you might get interest, right? And the most important is that you might expand businesses, because if you are selling to mid-sized to enterprises, right, they might have branches, they might have distributed teams, so you could sell to new branch, to new team, to new country, new region, etc. That's the truth, and you just expand the business with existing customers. That's why your marketing plan should touch all of these points, right? Of course, if you'll start from scratch, you won't be able doing all of these activities, but more or less you must be prepared and doing this full funnel marketing plan. And finally, the question that we have, and we are moving to the last part of our presentation, is how to measure the efficiency of our go-to-market strategy. Basically, how should we report to our executives? I believe there are several metrics that you should report and everybody should be aligned. Marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, new SQLs from marketing, sales qualified opportunities and sales pipeline, new customers, lost SQLs, and then the metrics that are marked in red are revenue metrics, the most important metrics. Deal close rate, net average contract value, then average contract value, and sales pipeline velocity, because sales pipeline velocity shows you the trajectory of your revenue, what you could expect at the end of the year. Quite often I receive a question like, well, look at LinkedIn, lots of people are talking about the death of MQLs. And the problem is not MQLs by itself. The problem is how companies are defining market and qualified leads and what they are doing with market and qualified leads. Basically, for most companies that have that are doing the boiler room marketing, right? They present market and qualified. They call market and qualified leads the contacts that download gated ebooks or attend the webinars, right, and send this to sales. And that these are just the contacts. These are not leads. For me, market and qualified leads are contacts, are accounts that passed your or hit your engagement threshold. So basically, they have meaningful engagement that you consider is enough to start conversations with them, and they fit your ideal customer profile, right? So they would be open to have discussions. And again, it's not about sending them cold email and pitching them, but basically start connecting with the buying committee, right? Start opening conversations, trying to get in more context about their needs and the goals. And this is what I used to call the MQLs. And when you'll have this report, it becomes pretty clear, you know, how marketing contributes to revenue, how marketing is aligned with sales, right? And how effective it is in your company. So these are the core elements of go-to-market strategy. And this is the entire framework we use with Vladimir to develop it for our customers. And basically, it's time for Christmas, and lots of folks from our Full Funnel Academy asked us to record a B2B marketing strategy playbook. So finally, we just finished it yesterday, and we want to make a small Christmas present for you. So we have, for everybody who attended this workshop, we made a 50% discount, so you could purchase it for just $119 instead of $250. And as well, you'll get one more gift, my LinkedIn book that I wrote years ago, right, and published on Amazon, and recording of the workshop I have done in Valencia, where actually I met Vlad. He lives in Valencia, Spain, and that would be our Christmas gift for you guys. If you'd like to learn more about the entire framework, we dive into details. We have all the templates, right, that we have shared: ideal customer profile, account segmentation, buyer's journey, customer interviews, marketing planning, etc. We cover all these details in that playbook. So if you are interested, that would be for you. So it's time for Q&A. Let's discuss all of your questions.
There were quite some questions in the meantime. So Rohan asked, Rohan, if you want, maybe you can also turn on your camera and Mike can go ahead and ask. In the meantime, just a quick readout. Maybe Andre, you want to take this one. How to determine the lead score of an MQL versus SQL?
It's not, I don't believe in a lead score, to be honest. I call it pretty simple account engagement. So in our case, again, this account engagement might depend on the client's business, right? So for us, account engagement is basically having engagement on LinkedIn with at least of 5 last posts. So it could be private message exchange, right? Then the at least 2 event signups, and also spending 30 minutes on our website. And among these 30 minutes, this account should check one of our case studies and work with us page. This means for us account engagement, basically that people somehow are curious what we are doing, right? How might we help? And they are consuming this content. That's for us a good account engagement criteria. And if this company fits ideal customer profile, then we call it market and qualified lead and add this lead to CRM. You could call it whatever you want. You could, if you want, kick it out from your marketing report, that's absolutely fine. You could have just sales, accepted leads, whatever. For me, it's literally the same, to be honest. For me, it's the same. If you don't, you could, if you don't want to have it in your report, you could kick it out. Absolutely no problem.
So just a lot of people asked me if the recording and slides will be provided. Yes, you'll get an email from Andre with the recording and the slides. And Pauline, you asked a couple of questions. So if you want to come online, well, turn on your camera and your mic, please go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I can read the question.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi. Sorry, I'm just here in a storm, Bara. We're having a storm in Ireland, so I'll just keep my camera off to keep my internet going, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Just feel free to.
Hi, guys. I follow you both on LinkedIn and absolutely love your content. But I wanted to ask you, once we're past that initial awareness and scoring a call with a client, I always wonder, is it better to be very strong and very direct and show all the benefits of your products when you're talking to them, or should you take a step back and still talk about their problems without selling your solution too much? Because they already know about you, right? To a certain point, they accepted a call, but at the same time, you do want to show that you care about their problem. It's something that I struggle with anyway. What do you think, like in your opinion, your experience with SaaS products?
So let me just reflect on it. So startups score and the first call with a potential client who needs your solution. I shall be talking about the problems. So it's about the sales process. I would say that all discovery calls right now we are talking about sales, right? I would share my subjective opinion. I'm definitely not that in sales, but I would share my subjective opinion. So you always should be learning about the goals and the needs of that specific prospect, because otherwise your demo would be talking a lot about features. Hey, look, we have this fantastic feature and we have this fantastic feature, and our product was adapted by these logos from your vertical, so you definitely leverage out of it. But nobody, that process could be replaced with a simple product overview. Your goal, if you want to sell it, right, this is something that I shared, you need to understand the role of this person in the buying committee, right? Are they champions? Are they decision makers, right? Who they are. So you could ask, so what led you to book a call with us, right? What is happening in your business that you're considering to implement this solution? I don't know, Zoom, Notion, for example. Let's take Notion, right? Let's take Notion and stuff. So what was going in your business? And then might say, look, we have a bunch of software, like different teams have different products like Google Documents, Evernote, etc. And we want to have one, let's say, unified system, something like this, right? You have the context. Then you could ask, like, what is the most painful in your existing setup, right? They might say, let's say, give you some more feedback. Then you ask, okay, and what would be the ideal outcome for you? So let's say, what would be the core outcome of leveraging the product like ours, right? And then you start simply adapting your demo to these needs. So look, this is what you said, right? And I believe this is how Notion might help you. And you start talking about the value this customer expects and this specific job role. Then you could ask, like, by the way, do you plan to buy it now, or are you going to discuss it with somebody else, right? They say, look, I need to discuss it with head of sales and my CEO, for example. And then you say, okay, so I have like the next suggestion. I will create a dedicated content hub and I will explain the benefits your CEO will get and your sales team will get, right? Plus, I will share some case studies, how sales teams and executives are using Notion all together, for example. And if you want, we can have a call together and I will explain it to them. And then you create basically why you are doing this, right? Of course, Notion is low ticket product, but I'm just giving like a general framework, right? So your goal is to armor your champion with enough arguments to sell inside their organizations this product. So that's why these questions are so important.
Absolutely. That's really good, because oftentimes, you talk to that champion and then it doesn't really go any further, as you know, and you spend so much time. But thanks a million. That's really good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So what was the next? The link doesn't work. I'm just checking it right now.
No, I think the Thrive card is I'm having trouble logging in. It's like there is some problem with that. It loads for me, but sometimes doesn't load. I think people are just...
I see that works. Anyhow, we'll send email with the recording and with the link, so don't worry about this. But I'll just wait for a while. Probably some load.
And if for some reason you miss it, just reach out to us. We'll make sure you get it. But let me also, there was a question from Ricardo and he had to leave. But I think it's an interesting question, and he kind of expects to have it on recording. Like, how long does it take to implement the full funnel strategy, right? Well, basically, the way that we implement this approach is using marketing sprints. What is a marketing sprint? A marketing sprint is a very focused, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks maximum, like anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks, effort to implement, for example, a pilot campaign or a part of this funnel, right? And so what the idea is that you go very quickly, get the feedback from the market with a marketing sprint, and already start potentially looking at, some plays that have a bit of the warm up, that you're already updating your value proposition, targeting the right customers, etc. We have been implementing like a mini full funnel with our customers within 6 to 8 weeks, the first version. And the idea is that obviously from there, you start adding the other elements. Maybe there is not a lot of demand generation. Maybe it's very focused on the target accounts, using one type of play, adding different plays, adding other elements you can do over time. But implementing a decent, if you're looking, for example, at 2022, you could implement, even if you're starting from scratch, I'm sure you will be able to implement this, a good version already in Q1. By the end of the Q2, you will have like most of these elements in place for sure. And that's like starting from scratch, right? So to summarize, think about marketing sprints. I can share some examples. I think I already shared. And think about, building it gradually like that.
So the next question was about the effectiveness of social selling. That's a good one. And this is aligned with the question that Vlad just tackled. So we do social selling, and basically we embed social selling in our account-based marketing sprints, because it's not a one-to-mass approach. You do social selling to strategic accounts, right? And the social selling belongs to the ABM activation part. This is where it happens. So you need to have a list of strategic accounts. You need to do the warm-up before doing social selling. Now, the way how we track the efficiency of social selling is by setting up leading indicators that sales team can hit. If you'll set up a target, let's say, generate 5 sales qualified opportunities, whatever could be, X sales qualified opportunities, or generate X volume of revenue, you might not achieve this goal. And the reason why, because again, as I said, it's not a linear process. It's not a linear process. All accounts are buying differently. They are different stages of their buying process. But you could forecast how and when you'll be able to close these opportunities by following the leading indicators. And in this case, what are the leading indicators? Connection acceptance, conversation started, conversation started about your product. Basically, when you introduce your product, right, the example like I shared, you shared the content hub, right, they have engagement, and then you suggest to book a call to answer these questions, and this is where you just open the conversation, you introduce your products. These are leading indicators that are leading you towards sales qualified opportunities. And this is exactly the way how we measure the efficiency, right? By tracking leading indicators. Which stage of the funnel should you call your leads as SQL ready? So for me, SQL ready, for me, sales qualified lead is the account that actually proved the interest in your product. And in our case, these are the companies that are reaching us out and booking calls with us. So we don't reach out to them until they booked a call, until they showcased a real interest. These are marketing qualified leads or sales accepted leads, if you will. So it's not a sales qualified opportunity. So when do you activate? When basically your question might be rephrased as when it's right time to activate these accounts, right? And the right time to activate these accounts when they hit specific engagement threshold. Remember what I shared? I shared our examples. So it could be website engagement. It could be checking specific pieces of content or specific pages on your website, checking specific documents, checking these dedicated content hubs, attending, I don't know, webinars. It's up to you. You define what's the right account engagement. And when they hit this threshold, right, you start opening these conversations and start doing the activation. Cool. Any other questions, guys? Yeah, my pleasure. Any other questions? So how long this is we have tackled, right? What else? Winston, anything from your side? How do you define SQL? This is what I just literally said, right? For us, we define sales qualified lead or sales qualified opportunity as is when account books a call with us. So they say we are interested in your product. This is a sales qualified opportunity for us. For those that are not booking call with us, this we call them marketing qualified leads or sales accepted leads. It's up to you. How will you call it?
Yeah, a lot of companies might actually have the qualification call to make sure that there are things like, there is a timeline, there is a budget, there is authority to decide, actually a salesperson talking to them, making sure that there is a real opportunity there before they mark it as a sales qualified lead.
Okay, so what's next? With social selling, if you have a number of sales, I think that, how do you know that's, sorry. With social selling, if you have a number of salespeople, how do you know that they're having the right conversations? Is there a tool you use to track? It's just CRM. Or in our case, we set up this in Notion. So how can you track if they're having the right conversations, right? They should report, right? You have all comes with alignment on strategic accounts. So marketing and sales together create a list of strategic accounts you are going to warm up and activate. So there are no chances that they don't have the right. If they are doing something on their own, that's one story. But basically, in a normal case, right, when they are aligned, there won't be a situation when they don't have right, or let's say when they have wrong conversations. So that shouldn't be a problem. So the next one is by Jack. Would you like to answer it, Vlad?
Yeah, actually, Jack, come in contact with us if you like. We actually have specifically for consultants and marketing agencies. We have what we call Full Funnel Academy, where we share all our courses and basically also have bi-weekly Q&As with companies, and a lot of people are actually implementing our framework and selling it to their their end customers, and we help them with the implementation, with some advice and things like that. That's not really our main focus, but a lot of people were asking us for that, so we are providing that. Our main focus remains on, like we always say, B2B tech and service companies with long and complex sales cycles. But we openly share, like you see, openly share all our frameworks, templates, even like how we are selling and stuff like that. If that's something that interests you, just reach out to me, and I'll send you more info. Or if you want, I'll send you right away. Okay, thank you, Jack. Sure.
Also, guys, this is a link. Yeah, that should be a right link with a Christmas coupon applied. So if you'll follow this link, then you won't have checkout problems. Yeah. Paulina also shared, I used the academy content before in a previous. Basically, you are coming from Tribe 47, right? From our Polish friends. Yeah. If I'm correct, right? Yeah, exactly. So I remember. Yeah. Next one is by Elon. Plat, you're referring to B, A, and T, but that has its own challenges. B and T is not always a true SQL, and I'm talking about painful personal experience. Yeah, that's why. Look, we want to avoid. We are not that much involved in sales. We help salespeople, but we are not talking about the way how sales should qualify. I spent 5 years in sales before switching to marketing, but that's not our core area of expertise. So I just would like to avoid the discussions about the right way to structure and discovery calls. I believe there are so many people on LinkedIn that are talking about this. You could follow them. Josh Brown, for example, right? Next one is by Muhammad. ABM works well, especially via LinkedIn when it comes to large size tickets. Would that be the same case with Google Ads banner, especially for this lead generation? Vlad, would you want to tackle this?
Yeah, so there is kind of a nuance in the answer, but basically, if you look at the ads and what their role is, especially ads like I mentioned, display. A lot of people, when they're thinking about warm-up plays for ABM, they're thinking about display ads. Now, the problem with display ads is that there is banner blindness. People are ignoring that. If they're not ready, they're not really clicking on the ads. There is a problem that people actually don't spend so much time on websites where these ads are showing. They spend more time in Slack, in their CRM system, whatever the internal spreadsheets, whatever internal use that they're using, tools that are using. And so it's like limited. The way that we think about it is that ads are really good in two ways. So the first one is, if you're talking about demand generation, ads can amplify your reach. They can amplify your reach, and I'm talking about content distribution mainly. I'm not talking so much about, it's not about calling people for a demo. It is about getting your content to reach your target audience, to reach more of your target audience. That's like the one part of it. And that's as a part of demand generation. So you're not sending them to the landing page. You're not sending to gated content that they download and then put them in an email sequence, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking about just getting more education in front of the buyers. And the second part is in demand capture. So yes, there is definitely, it depends on the market and how competitive it is, how mature it is. There is some demand to be captured on search, and so I know some companies that are doing a great job in doing that. And an experience that we were chatting with Jonathan Bland, who is running OmniLab, I believe, the agency. They are doing a lot of ads. They're doing demand generation in the right way. They're great guys. I mean, I really love what they're doing. And his experience, like the way that they do this is they focus on the keywords that actually converted to sales. So they really go back and go back into their CRM, and they're not just looking, because the problem with like setting up ads and having these, you know, Google gives you a very nice overview, but they are looking at like MQLs, like basically how many cost of acquisition, right? That's the kind of like things that you're optimizing, but you actually want to optimize for sales conversion. And basically, based on this analysis, they came to the conclusion that it was usually longer tail keywords that actually converted into sales. They were quite expensive, and but they actually, I mean, if you really count as a cost of sale and not just cost of acquisition, they were much more effective. And really, to capture the demand, you're looking at intent channels like Google search, but not at channels like LinkedIn where there is no intent. People just come there to connect to other people, to learn. And if you're just driving them to book a demo, that usually doesn't work. That channel is much better for, like I mentioned, content distribution, educating your buyers about about your product features, benefits, and things like that, without gating, without trying to generate leads and get them into the funnel.
And that also answers the next question by Oren. What are your thoughts on Facebook lead gen forums?
Long tail.
Yeah, exactly. So look, Facebook leads forums are just a tool, right? So the question is how your strategy is executed. If it's like more or less related to boiler room marketing, something that I was talking in the beginning, yeah, then leads form, they don't matter, right? The problem is the list or target addressable market or list of accounts that you have created. Maybe you made a mistake in the beginning in defining the right segments or defining the ideal customer profile, and then you end up with low quality leads, right? And Facebook leads form, again, keep in mind, it's just a tool. So they have nothing with the quality of the leads. That's the key. And a very good question by Ivan. Do you have any tips for small teams up to 10 people? Is it possible to execute a complex B2B marketing strategy with just one main marketing and sales guys? Sorry. Absolutely possible, I would say. Of course, you won't be able to implement everything from scratch. And why I'm so confident, because always with our clients, we say that for all pilot sprints, we should have a small team. Because the truth is, the fewer people you have in a project, the pace would be, so the more faster you'll be able to execute, the more faster you'll be able to get the first results, and the faster you'll be able to document and processes, right, and get the alignment. In most cases, let's say for go-to-market strategy, for developing a go-to-market strategy, it's just enough to have one person who could communicate with executives, right, to align on goals, on strategies, and then working on the next 6 core elements of strategy could be done by this person. For account-based marketing, potentially yes. For demand generation, potentially yes, if you have time. Optionally, you'd have 2 people, marketer who is in charge of warm-ups, right, and sales who is in charge of activation. But basically, it would be possible. The timeline, how fast you'd be able to implement it, I would say if it would be just one person that pairs 2 hats, right, marketing and sales, then you should consider at least 12 to 18 months. That's the realistic process to implement the entire full funnel strategy, right? To develop go-to-market strategy, that could be absolutely possible to do in 6 to 12 weeks, depending on, let's say, the quality of your relationship with your customers. So basically, how fast would you be able to host customer interviews, right? How fast you'll be able to extract the data and work on these strategic exercises. So basically 6 to 12 months, but as a rule of thumb, in 1 quarter, you'll definitely would be able to do it. Cool. I see that we have answered all the questions. Now the question is coming from me. How did you like this workshop? just share with us in a Zoom chat. Curious to hear your feedback. Thank you, Zoli. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, thank you, Max. Thanks, Ilan. Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks, Rohan. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. So again, keep in mind that if you'd like to get that playbook, that would be the right link, right? So the coupon is applied, and as a bonus, after you'll enroll, you'll get a mail from me also with a link to LinkedIn Inbound Workshop plus my LinkedIn book. So thank you so much for your feedback. Thanks a lot for fantastic engagement. We just forecasted 1 hour, but now you see we spent altogether 1 hour and a half. That's this week we'll host our last event. This Thursday, as Vlad mentioned, we'll have April Dunford on our podcast. Probably some of you know that we do live podcasts. We do it for our community. It's not just boring one-to-one conversation. So you could always come up, join the discussion, ask your questions about positioning. So don't miss it. The link to the podcast, yes, just a second. I will drop it now, and that would be it for today. So this is a page with all the past episodes, and the next link is a link where you can save your spot for the session with April Dunford. So the first one is where all previous episodes are located, and the next one is the link to save your spot for the session with April. Thank you so much, guys. It was really a blast. We had, how many people did we have? We had around 160 people online, right? Or even 180 people online, 600 signups. So that was a blast. Thanks you all for coming, for asking fantastic questions, and for your engagement. Appreciate it. And see you on Thursday. Cheers. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.